that means it's time for opposite Saxes. Can you believe it? We got another campaign coming up.
Didn't we just have one?
It's election week. I mean, it's like every couple of months we've got another election.
And this is a runoff for us?
No,
This is just an election.
And that's part of the
I'm
problem.
very confused.
You never know what the election is, who's running, and for what. And instead of just having elections like every other year and just cover everything, president, the mayors, the school board, all these elections are separate. The one that's coming up now is for school board in our community.
In our area.
You got to check, because traditionally the first Tuesday in May is an election day all around the country. I remember that being a spring election, and it's usually municipal elections. But we just had municipal elections not too long ago here for our council members. There were 2 vacancies on the city council, and we had to vote for that. Well, as it turned out, there was 2 people that were running, an incumbent and a new person that was running for one place, and the incumbent, who was having some medical issues, resigned. Well, so that meant that they really didn't have to vote for the other one because she was elected by acclamation. But the other seat, there were 5 people running. Naturally, no one got 51% of the vote. So that meant a runoff election. And they usually allow 2 months or something for a runoff election. Well, here we go. Now it's just a couple months later, and now we're having elections for the school board for, I think, 2 or 3
and a
seats
couple of
on the school board,
and a couple of propositions.
Yes, and normally, since we don't have children, I probably wouldn't even be that inclined to go vote for the school board members, even though you don't have kids in school.
You really
it does
should anyway.
It affects your taxes
absolutely
based on the decisions that those people on the school board make.
Yeah.
But I as I said, I might say it's not that important for me to vote, but they always add a couple of propositions. And one of the propositions is to increase the homestead exemption. Well, I don't know about anybody, I can't believe there would be anybody who says, no, I don't want my homestead exemption to go up.
But I don't think all the states have homestead exemptions. So there might be people that have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, no, I think homestead exemptions are pretty prevalent all over the country.
I don't know.
But I don't know whether it's state to state or community to community, whether it's a county thing or it's a local thing.
Either way.
But it still means that you're going to save money on your property taxes with a homestead exemption.
Right.
And so most people will go to the polls because they want to make sure that something like that passes. But then there's always those things on the ballot, like, railroad commissioner. Number one, here where we live, they just tore up the train tracks. So the one area that used to get stopped for the train going through, that they almost eliminated. So the railroad commissioner, it's just like the one that goes around and picks up stray pets. You have to vote for somebody to head up that department. And
I just wish, if it were possible, and it's probably not possible, but it seems more practical to me if we could consolidate a lot of these elections, because you have more of a captive audience in my mind. If you have so many more elections per year, people are going to get tired. They don't want to be bothered with it. It's very confusing. There's not a lot of press. There's a lot of billboards in our area.
Oh man, that's another thing.
But come on, you can't really read them while you're driving.
The more elections that you have, the more publicity posters there are, and they are on every corner.
It's awful.
And now, if I'm a candidate, you got to realize that that's costly.
Yeah,
to go around and to make up 50 or 100 of these placards, and then go out and have to physically put them, and you are restricted by some places where you can, which means the exits off of the tollway, almost every exit off the tollway where there is a vacant lot or something, there's 40 or 50 posters. Some are duplicates, others are, but when you're supposed to be keeping your eye on the road,
Yeah.
and
You
yet
can't.
you're sitting there at the light and you're trying to look at all of these names,
Right.
and then some like little catchy phrase like vote for a veteran, you know, or
There's one that has the one that's running, he's in army fatigues with a rifle
yes,
in his arms.
yes. Vote because I'm gonna hold this seat.
That
And I'm
was
gonna
I've never seen that done.
sit there with a weapon in my hand.
I've never seen that.
But you vote for my bill, or I'll
But
lock and
then
load.
you only have so many days in which you're supposed to be taking them down after the election.
You're allowed to put
Doesn't
them up,
always
I
work that
think,
way.
60 days in advance
Yeah, and
of an
then-
election, and you have another 30
to
days,
take
I
them down?
think, or something in
90
order to
days?
take them down. Okay,
Wow.
that's okay. But then 2 months later, there's going to be another election on the horizon in summertime or in the fall. So 60 days before the election, all the posters go back
Yeah,
up.
I just,
I mean,
I don't know.
frankly,
I'm not one to litter highways, although I
Yeah.
guess that's the only way they can get their names out. But the newspapers don't do a whole lot of publicity. There's nothing on the televisions. Who could afford to put it on there anyway?
Yeah.
But
Well-
I'm a Scrooge sometimes when it comes to the elections.
well, we also just want to let you know that we are brought to you in part by our good friend Irving Chung, who is a franchise specialist. Why do I mention a franchise specialist? Because with all this talk about campaigns and everything, maybe you might want to consider a sign franchise, because
Maybe.
that's got to be a pretty good gig to get a sign
And there are
contract
those businesses.
for all of those candidates to put all their signs
Mhm.
up on all those busy corners.
Good idea.
But you can call Irving Chung and you can discuss it for free. And he'll tell you all about franchising, whether you're really interested in it, or maybe you just have a couple of questions. But, give him a call. He's a really, really nice guy, isn't he?
He's a very nice guy. He's very intelligent.
He is. And he's also
Very
a
intelligent.
franchisee.
Yeah.
He has some cycle bars, which are stationary
I think you've
cycle
mentioned that.
places,
Yeah.
and does very, very well. So he knows what he's talking about.
So,
But
getting back to the other,
so I mentioned that only because the signage.
no, it was a good
it,
idea.
it drives me
Yeah.
nuts. And also, municipal elections generally are not that well attended. I think they say the average is about 12%, 12 to maybe up to 20% of the eligible voters even go out to vote. So what do? Which that
What do
means
they
that's a
do?
smaller number. What do?
I
They
don't
give
know.
you 2 weeks in advance for early voting, which means the polls are open usually 5 or 6 days a week for 2 weeks. You've got all those poll workers and poll judges and staff that are paid. They're paid positions.
It's a
And I don't want
great
to take money out of
gig.
anybody's
It's a
anybody's
great
pocket.
part-time job, let me
Yep.
tell you.
It is, but for an election where maybe 5,000 people in a community of 100,000 or 150,000 people, at 5,000, why do you have to have early voting? Maybe a couple of days, but
Are you venting?
I'm venting, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, seems like
growing
it.
up, you went out and you voted on election day. Sometimes you'd have to stand in line for a
But
few
you can't
hours.
compare years ago to now. It's so different. People's schedules are so different. The working environment is different.
I know, but the
You-
point I think I'm making is the fact that we're now making it easier for people to vote, and not as many people are turning out to vote.
Well, but then there are some people that would say, goody, that we're making it easier, because on the other side of the coin, there's other laws that are being enacted that are making it more difficult for people to vote.
yeah.
So,
And around the
Come on.
country, there are places where they're trying to limit the early voting.
Yes,
They're trying to eliminate
absolutely.
absentee.
so be careful what
Well,
you wish for.
Well, I know, and that's why I say I think the whole system needs needs a little bit more, fine tuning, if you will. And it also needs to be a
No.
little bit more consistent from city to city and state to state.
I guess they just didn't ask your opinion,
They didn't ask my opinion.
but you're giving it now.
That's right. And if you don't like it, lump it.
Well, no, I mean, what is it? It's
Or
10 days?
I'll call that guy that's wearing the fatigues and carrying the rifle.
In our area, what is it? 10 days to 2 weeks where they have early voting? It seems like it.
I think
Maybe
it's about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we've
It
gone
is a long time.
for early voting sometimes.
Oh,
And you walk in
absolutely.
and there are maybe 8 to 10 poll workers.
No, there's not 8 to 10.
Well, you have
There
at
might
least
be
2 to 3
4.
people at registration. You also
4 or
have a
5.
couple people that are because now with COVID, when you use a pen or whatever,
I know, they have
they
to
clean the pen
sanitize
and they
it.
have to sanitize all the little
Right.
voting
That's
stations.
correct.
You also have to have 2 assigned judges. Those are people that just sit there to oversee the operation. So I'm saying there's a half a dozen or so people, and you walk in and you're the only person there. I mean, it's nice to see your neighbors and say, hey, thank you for helping out with the voting. But if you made it available, but not maybe as available, you'd probably have more people per hour coming in.
I
to
just
vote.
say we shouldn't have as many elections.
Yeah.
Just
And-
try and consolidate them somehow. But again, they didn't ask me either. So what do we know?
But
We're
so
venting.
I mean, and we're talking about our community, but I would imagine that a lot of you that are watching, probably all around the country. I just know that the beginning of May traditionally is a time when a lot of municipalities have their voting for their city councils, for their educational boards, for their city and county boards, all kinds of things. And it's your right to vote and your duty to vote. And we encourage you to get out and vote.
Absolutely.
But also
let your vote be heard.
Yeah, do your due diligence. Very often the papers will print up a paper ballot, and it will even highlight a few paragraphs about each person that's
Yeah, we go
running.
through it
To
together.
say, yeah, we absolutely
Yeah.
to find out, because one person may want to limit the number of children in a classroom, and somebody else says, no, we're growing too fast, so we don't want to limit it to 20 students
Well,
a
and-
class.
and-
35 is fine.
Sometimes the PR out there isn't enough on the candidate. So we Google them and we just like
Yeah.
to get some more information. And yeah.
And
that's what we do.
unfortunately, there are a lot of people, I believe, that really have a good heart and want to serve on their city councils, and they want to serve on their school boards and
Absolutely,
everything,
there are.
but they don't have deep pockets. And also they can't buy all those posters
Oh, and that's the other thing I was going to bring up.
and all. And yet you get somebody else who has much deeper pockets and just wants to get on that board because they want to raise a little bit of.
I wish this country would have a finite number on lobbyists and campaign donations and how much you can spend on a campaign. It's gotten to be ridiculous.
And-
The amounts of money that is spent.
Yeah.
on
And you
these.
know what? I agree with you.
But-
And this show is opposite Saxes, but
we
some-
agree on this.
sometimes we agree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One last thing before we go. Did you happen to see?
Who's leaving? I'm having
Oh, you're
fun. I'm
staying here
having a good
anyway,
time. You can leave. I'll stay. I'll talk to the folks.
No, then it wouldn't be opposite taxes.
Oh,
Um,
then I get my point
there was
across.
there was a news right now. We're talking about Macron, the president of
Oh, the Macron that
France.
just got reelected, the
Yeah,
president of
yeah.
France.
But what they were showing on the news is they have lucite clear ballot boxes. So
Really?
yes, and so I'm thinking, is it computer generated, or are they going through and they're counting all of these? Because it shows the people putting a piece of paper into the ballot box, and they're not huge pieces of paper like ours. They're folding them over and they're
Yeah.
putting them in this clear lucite ballot box, which is not that huge. And I don't know how they count them, but it was interesting because that was their way of showing them they're not trying to hide anything.
Well,
trying
and
to be
also somebody
very-
must be overseeing those lucite boxes to make sure
Yeah.
that somebody isn't dropping 5 or 6
Yeah,
ballots.
it was interesting. I just caught that on the news
Yeah.
the other night.
Yeah, sometimes I think about all the different kind of voting setups that we've been through.
Mhm.
From the old walk in
The
and
crank?
crank
Yeah.
the curtain
was
shut,
little girl.
and you had to vote by
Yeah.
taking the different little levers
That was a
and
long
putting
time
them down,
ago.
to now today where it's all like computerized. But I'm still very, very, cognizant of the fact when they say that if it's one of those, it's got the little circles,
Yeah,
you have to make sure that
it's you.
and you think back when I was in kindergarten and the teacher said, now color in the lines,
Yeah.
stay in the lines.
Yeah.
And you always thought,
What do I have
what-
to do?
yeah,
Why do I have
when
to
am
do
I
that?
ever going to have to
Yeah.
do that? And all of a sudden, now we're adults, we go to vote and we're told, fill in the little circle.
Well, they used to have the
Because if you go
punches.
outside the circle, it
You're
won't
right. You're
count.
screwed. Excuse the expression. Um, they used to have the little punch ones.
Then there was
too.
but then
And
you had the hanging chads
Oh,
when
yeah.
we lived in Florida.
Is that why they stopped that?
Oh yeah, because
Yeah,
if
I
you
guess.
didn't punch it just right, it wouldn't go all the way
Yeah.
through. So did it
That was
vote?
for Gore, right?
Yeah, that was when Gore ran for
Yeah,
president
yeah.
against, I don't remember, but
Whoever. Well, anyway, go out and vote wherever you are.
go out and vote, do your due diligence, study your opponents. Don't just vote for friends, vote for the best candidate for the office so that whatever office they're running for,
Right.
they're going to do the best thing for the entire community, not just you
Exactly.
personally or just their party or their friends.
Well said.
Was that well said?
Very good.
Well, thank you
I
very
approve.
much. I appreciate that very much because I'm not always well said.
Oh, no, you are.
I go
You don't have
on
to
and
worry
on
about
and
that.
on. Okay, well, I won't go on and on
No.
anymore. Okay,
Cut it.
we're out of here.
See ya.
Goodbye.
Bye.